now it's 0. Concurrent viewers. Hey, I got 2 viewers. Who are you? Let me know in the chat. We're going to make this chart right here. Kind of an overall experience rating chart, but it's pretty cool. It's a kind of a floating bar treatment, and we will call this a diverging stacked column chart. You can make it in a bar chart to a horizontal chart. Kind of cool treatment. This is what the final product is going to look like. And I have a blank slide over here with our chart placeholder right here. And this is PowerPoint. So we're going to open the chart in PowerPoint. I'm going to go ahead and take my data from Excel. I've already analyzed it right here. You can see I have my overall experience rating. I'm going to maximize the window. You can see that these are my experience ratings here. It's 5 points: poor, fair, good, excellent, outstanding. I want to kind of aggregate these into a less than excellent bucket. That's the bottom 3 responses, which I often do, and it makes things look a little bit better, I think, especially for ratings like this when we're talking about you know, zoo, aquarium, museum audiences, and that's who I'm working with mostly. So I'm just going to go ahead and sum those bottom 3 responses there. You can see that's 18%. I'm going to go ahead and just type equals for the excellent and get there, and then we have our equals for the outstanding right there. And I'm going to go ahead and just copy those all the way across. Looks pretty nice. I'll just ignore those errors, those little green carrots. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and highlight everything right here. I'm going to hold down Shift and then highlight my top row here. Those are my year labels. I'm going to push Control-C to copy. And then let's go ahead and put these into a chart. So I want this to be a column chart, and we'll go up here to the stacked column version right there. And I'm going to say OK. Let's open this, and it's going to open. It should give us a nice kind of a default chart. That's one of the great things about PowerPoint. It gives you this sort of stock dummy chart with the data source that pops up right here. I'm going to go ahead and just click into that cell A1 and push Control-V to paste, because I already copied my data, which was pretty handy. I'm going to say OK. And unfortunately, it looks like it pasted everything. So I'm going to go ahead. I guess it didn't really like when I was trying to do that pasting different rows with using the control feature. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete all of these rows. Delete. And it looks like that worked. Now you can see the chart down here is looking a little bit wonky, not exactly what we like. The years are in the legend. And the series down here are my ratings for less than excellent, excellent, and outstanding. We don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and click switch row and column, and that switches our chart really nicely. So perfect right there. I'm going to go ahead and close the data source window for now, just so we can see this. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my chart title. Let's just do that. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get rid of the legend because we're not going to need that for now. Well, actually, I'm going to keep the legend just so that you can see what happens there. I'm going to go ahead and drag the plot area a little bit over. We'll put the legend to the right just so we can see how that looks. Now what we need to do to make that floating bar treatment, that diverging treatment, we need to have a couple helper formulas and rows that we're going to include in our chart, but we're going to turn those series to no fill or white. And then it will give the illusion that these bars are sort of floating, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click the chart to edit the data. That's how we open the data source window. I'm going to say Edit in Excel. And after we do that, you can see the data source pops up here. I'm going to add a row above 2, and I'm going to add a row below 4. So we're just going to right-click and insert that row. And this is just going to be my helper 1. And here we need to do a formula. We're going to do 1, that's 100%, minus whatever is in the less than excellent cell, because I want to diverge. I want to have the cut point there between less than excellent and excellent. So right here I'm going to say equals 1 minus, and then point to that cell. We'll push enter. That's 82%, and then I'm going to drag this across, so that copies the formula across all of my rows. Now you can kind of get a chance to see right here, this big blue bar, that's what we're going to end up turning white in the end. But I want to add one more row on this side. This is going to be my helper number 2. And right here, this is another formula. We're going to do 100% again, so it's 1 minus, but this time it's going to be the sum of those top two ratings, the excellent and outstanding. So we're going to say 1 minus sum, open the parenthesis, and then drag both of those cells so that it includes excellent and outstanding there. And then we're going to go ahead and close the parenthesis. Oops, looks like I'll do Control Z to undo. Looks like oh, that's because I didn't type an equal. Equal 1 minus sum, and then we will drag these two rows. Now you can see B4 and B5, close the parenthesis, and then push enter. And now I'm going to drag that formula all the way across. Perfect. That looks really nice. And I'm going to close the data source, and you can see my chart looks a little bit like this. Kind of strange for now, but you can see these top sources over here in the legend. You can see helper 2 and helper 1 have now appeared. That's going to be part of my chart technically, but we're going to disguise it with some formatting. So we're going to go ahead at that top helper 2. I'm going to go ahead to the paint bucket and say no fill. And then the blue, the helper 1, paint bucket and no fill. And now look at that. You can see those floating bars have really sort of come to life here. So let's go ahead now, and I'm going to go ahead and do some formatting here to the chart. So we're going to make sure that to reduce that gap width, I say usually around 30 is a really good one, a good value to use. Let's do a little bit of color. The less than excellent category, I want to be a really dark gray, so I'm just going to make that be a dark gray. This is just a Microsoft default palette that we have embedded into the theme of this PowerPoint file. This is going to be a lighter blue. I like to use that shade right there. And then the outstanding, I'm going to go ahead and use the top, that blue right there. Very nice. Now the cool thing about diverging stacked bar charts when you're, or column charts, when you're using this is really a 100%, technically it's a 100% stacked column chart. Everything is proportional, so I can actually fill more of the plot area now with the chart if I wanted to, and the bars would stay sort of the same. So let's go ahead. I can see right here this lowest bar right here goes to about, I don't know, 28% or something like that, but let's go ahead and make the minimum of the axis to be 20%. So I'm going to highlight the axis there. The format axis menu pops up here, and under axis options we'll do 0.2 for the minimum. And that really fills that up. Now, if I wanted to mess with the top, I could probably do that, maybe go to 95, but I think actually 100 is probably just fine there. So let's just keep it at 1 to make things nice for us. And one thing that I really like to do is make sure that there is I like to get rid of these the grid lines. So let's get rid of the grid lines because they're not really meaningful to us at this point. But I do want to have a line that diverges, that cuts the chart right there. And you can either draw a line if you wanted to, just insert a line, kind of brute force over the chart, or you can embed it in the chart and you can change where this axis line goes right here. Right now the axis line is set to sort of minimum all the way at the bottom, but I'm going to set this axis line so that it cuts here at 50%. So I'm going to highlight that axis again, go to Format Axis menu, and right down here under axis options, we're going to say the horizontal axis crosses at, not automatic, but maximum value, or axis value, sorry. We're going to customize that value and do 0.5, so 50%. Now you can see the line goes here, but so do the labels. So you have to click on those axis labels, and then under labels down here, instead of next to axis, we're going to say low. And that's going to put them below. So that's pretty cool. So that looks pretty nice. And now from here, it's a lot of formatting. So I'm going to go ahead and format. I'm going to make that text bold on the axis and probably put it up to maybe 18% if this was, or 18 points. If this was a slide presentation, I'm going to make it a little darker. I can go ahead and delete that axis right there because that's meaningless to us at this point. We don't need it. And I'm going to delete the legend. We don't need that either. And let's just go ahead and fill the plot area a little bit more with these bars. And then I'm going to adjust the size, the dimension of this chart anyway, because I'm going to create my own custom legend label. So I'm going to make it probably around that size right there. I think that looks pretty nice. You kind of eyeball it to taste, kind of like a recipe. And then insert, I'm going to go ahead and insert this. We're going to just type in text box, outstanding. And I'm going to right align that text box, and I'm going to change it to the color that is associated with the bar right there. So that's pretty nice. I'll duplicate this. We'll make this excellent. and we're going to change the color to match. And Control D to duplicate is a really nice shortcut. We're going to do less than excellent right here. And we will definitely turn that gray. So I think that looks pretty nice there. Now let's use our alignment tools to make sure that these are perfectly aligned. And we're going to say arrange, and we'll say right. That looks nice. And then we'll put labels onto our bars, onto the series. So add labels here. Now the trick is, now by default, these labels always go into the center of the stack, of the slice. And I'm going to show you a little trick. This is kind of a pet peeve that I see with these stacked bars, especially with a diverging bar, because we definitely have a directionality that is sort of implied in a diverging bar, right? It's on one side, it's either on one side or the other. It gives us that nice cut point, that nice axis of orientation to sort of look to. We're going to increase the size there, but you can see how the labels are in the center of the bars. I want these labels from excellent and outstanding, I want them to be on the ends of the bars, because that gives that sort of sense of directionality. So let's go ahead and click on the labels, and then under the format label options, instead of center, I'm going to say inside end, and that puts them up into the end to give you that sense of movement. And then we'll do the same thing, but this time we'll say inside base, and that goes down. So I think that is a really nice touch, a detail to add to these diverging columns when you use them. But this was how to use the diverging column. If anybody is out there and sees that, feel free to put a note in the comments about how you like this. I had a note from a friend who saw this chart from me and asked, how did you make that chart? Did you just make individual stacked bar charts and then like nudge it down, nudge the one in 2020 down to make it, you know, to sort of make it floating in that way? It just really tells us that in 2020 we had really low, fairly low experience ratings, and then they went back and bounced back up and actually were a little bit higher after 2020. But no, I got to say no. This was a chart that we made embedded right in PowerPoint, right from scratch, and it's one single chart with the help of a little bit of text boxes for our customized legend. But that was a really nice sort of piece of learning for anybody who wants to make this kind of chart. We make a lot of these charts in the work that I do in program evaluation in museums and zoos and aquariums. So I thought it was pretty cool. So that's the end of this live stream today. This was an experiment. Not sure I'm going to do it again because I really don't know how this is going to turn out. But thanks to everybody who provided inspiration for the live stream. This was for you, Anne, out there. I'm going to keep watching your live streams and figure out how I can learn from them because they're getting better and better. So I think I can only go up from here. So I hope everybody out there is having